Hey guys, I hope you're having a great day so far, and I want to go ahead and give my thoughts on this past weekend's fight, Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz Jr. Of course, a shocking upset by Ruiz Jr. No one really expected this outcome. I didn't, and I think everyone, for the most part, was shocked by what transpired this past Saturday. Now, before this fight, of course, Andy Ruiz was a late replacement. The man that was given the task to fight Anthony Joshua at first here in his U.S. debut at Madison Square Garden in New York was actually Jarrell Big Baby Miller. But of course, Miller failed more than 2 or 3, I think it was 3 or 4 drug tests, testing positive for performance enhancement drugs. So of course that took him out of contention and took him out of the fight. And Joshua's team and his promoter, Eddie Hearn, had to look for a replacement. And that replacement came in the name of Andy Ruiz Jr. And Andy, I think, from what I know, was actually actively looking for this fight. From what I understand, I think he said it himself. He reached out to Eddie Hearn on social media, telling him that he wants to fight. Eddie says that he talked with his team, saw, the numbers and all that, I guess, what could Ruiz bring to the table, and they made the fight, and it became official. And there was a moment there where, I saw some interviews with Andy Ruiz, and the guy is very likable. He's got a great personality. He seems very humble, and he's an underdog coming into this fight, of course. And, my heart has always been with the underdog, so I automatically gravitated to him. And, in my heart, before the outcome of this Saturday, I would have wanted Andy Ruiz to win, but I kind of expected Joshua to pick up the victory. I remember watching an interview by Eddie Hearn in which he said, I'm kind of worried about Andy Ruiz Jr. I'm worried that he could pose a significant risk to Joshua, and I was gullible. And I believed it. Whether or not, though, it was true, whether Eddie Hearn was being sincere with that comment, I'm not really sure. But I think it was more promotion than anything. Because when you think about it, would Eddie Hearn, with less than a month to go, replace Jarrell Miller with a big risk for his fighter, for his cash cow? I don't think he'd do that. I don't think he would knowingly risk his fighter against a dangerous threat. So looking back and analyzing those comments of, I'm a little bit worried about Andy Ruiz being a threat to Anthony Joshua, I took it with a grain of salt because I said, he's a promoter and he's probably just building up the fight. So coming into the fight, I expected Andy Ruiz to actually make it more competitive than Jarrell Miller. I don't know why. I haven't really seen Jarrell Miller's work, but I just felt like Andy Ruiz was going to bring a little more to the table. Felt like he was going to be more competitive. He's got a Mexican heart. He's got like that attitude of, obviously you want the trainers, the referee, the fighter's corner to do the right thing, of course, if things are going too bad. But it looks like in his heart of hearts, Andy Ruiz is a fighter. And he looks like the type of fighter that he's willing to die in that ring. That's why I'm saying that you're counting on his team, on the fighter's team, to do the right thing in case things aren't going well. But if it were up to Andy Ruiz Jr., I feel, in my honest opinion, that he's a real fighter and he's willing to go out on a shield. And that's the vibe that I got from Andy Ruiz. I felt like he was going to bring a more competitive fight. I know he's got power and quick hands for his size. And so I felt like he was going to make it a little bit more competitive than Jarrell Miller would have. But ultimately, I felt like Anthony Joshua would have picked him apart and maybe scored a mid to late knockout victory. Of course, I was pleasantly surprised. Like I said, I like Joshua too, to be honest with you guys. He's a very humble, classy guy. I like him. He's really not bad-mouthing anyone. I know that, for example, when it comes to the heavyweights, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury have been a little bit more vocal and outspoken about their criticism of Anthony Joshua. But Anthony, he's only responded, back a little bit harder when the need, when he has to. He doesn't let himself be pushed around. But for the most part, he's a pretty classy guy, humble, soft-spoken, and he's really doesn't, do any sort of aggressive talking towards anyone. And that's what I like about Anthony Joshua. He's a very down-to-earth, classy guy. And so I like both of these fighters, but of course my heart with the underdog, Andy Ruiz Jr. So fight night comes, and from I understand that Andy Ruiz Jr. had already had a fight less than 2 months ago before this one. So even though you would preferably want, if you're going to be replacing someone, you preferably want to have at least 6 to 8 weeks of training. Usually late replacements don't get that. They get called up. They may have been training or not really. It might have been low intensity training or whatever. But usually they get about 2-3 weeks, and they have to go in there against the favorite opponent, the A side in most times, and so they don't have adequate time to prepare for that bout. Andy Ruiz, on the other hand, was coming fresh off of a knockout victory. Had already seen him go through a full training camp. Maybe he had time to take a few days off, but once that fight was over, once he got the call that the fight with Anthony Joshua was made, he was back in training camp, and I thought that was a benefit to him. Of course, he'd have to start preparing on short notice for the opponent and study and analyze Anthony Joshua. But as far as his body goes, his mentality, he was already there. He was already in training mode, and I think that was going to be something that was going to work in his favor, of course, which it did, in my opinion. So fight night comes around, and what happens is that the first couple rounds are a little bit of filling out rounds. It's expected. Most of the times fighters are trying to feel the other guy out, trying to see how their power stacks up. Are they going to respect their power or are they not? Looking for openings and all that sort of stuff, right? But the third round comes around, and Anthony Joshua does what everybody expected him to do. He lands a right shot towards Andy Ruiz, knocks him down, and fans, myself included, are thinking, this is it. It's coming sooner than we expected, but this is inevitably what we thought was going to be coming. Anthony Joshua is going to score the knockout victory. Andy Ruiz made it to his feet. He looked a little stunned, but he stayed focused. But you're still thinking, oh man, Anthony Joshua is going to start letting his hands go, and he's going to get the victory. But what happens then? Ruiz intelligently tries to fend off Joshua's offense. He clinches a couple times, not too much, but he does keep Joshua at bay. And next thing you know, in the same round, Ruiz catches him with a right hook, and he sends Joshua down for the count as well. So a lot of action going on in this third round. A lot of back and forth action. A knockdown from Joshua, a knockdown from Andy Ruiz, and then a second knockdown from Andy Ruiz Jr. He knocks down the heavyweight champion of the world twice in the same round after being knocked down himself. That was impressive. The round closes up, and you're like, what am I seeing? I know I was watching it with my brother, and I was telling my brother, wow, I can't believe this is happening. You've seen this happen in the past. You've seen this narrative go down in the past where you're seeing the underdog facing the heavily favored fighter, the A side, the one that has all the hype surrounding him, the one that commentators are building up because this is their guy. He's getting dismantled, and I'm going crazy saying, I can't believe this is happening. Is Andy Ruiz really going to pull out the upset? First of all, I didn't think he was going to knock down Joshua. And then now, so because you've already seen that, you're thinking, man, he might actually do this. And so this is getting insane as the rounds go by, right? So the third round is up. The fourth, fifth, and sixth rounds are a little bit more of the same that we saw in the first, second rounds. But this time around, Fighters both land significant shots. You can obviously see that Andy Ruiz Jr. has quicker hands. He's waiting for Joshua to kind of open up and come inside to give him the opportunity, because he is the shorter fighter. He's got the shorter arms. So when he lets Anthony Joshua, open up and start letting his hands go, that's when he finds his opportunity to also let his hands go. But Andy Ruiz does not just let 1 or 2 punches go. He throws a combination of 3-4 quick punches, and they're powerful punches, of course. So they have even more of an effect on Joshua. And that's what I was noticing. And one thing that I did notice that my brother actually pointed out in the 3rd round was how you're in your head, you're saying, go for the knockout, Andy. Go do it. Just knock him out. Why aren't you going for the finish? But Andy Ruiz, what really impressed me is that he maintained his composure. He was calm, he was composed, and he was very, very smart in this fight. He knew that, yes, he had hurt Anthony Joshua, but at the same time, he was smart enough to not really let his hands go too much, because in one of those exchanges, Anthony Joshua, who was still there, who was still capable of landing a bomb, could land one of those and send Andy Ruiz down to the canvas. So I thought that was very smart on Andy Ruiz's part, that he was able to maintain his composure and not really go too wild and reckless with his offense. And it paid off. The 7th round came, and the unexpected happened. Andy Ruiz started to land some bombs and started to land combinations, and Joshua went down for the 3rd time. And then the 4th time came around and knocked down, and what happens? Joshua spits out his mouthpiece. So it's Anthony Joshua legit on his knee. I think he was on one knee, and he spits out his mouthpiece. You're thinking, what's going on here? He stands up, the referee's starting to count. He's like, come here. Joshua turns his back. He's walking towards his corner. He says something to his corner, turns around, but his arms are on the top rope. The referee asks him, do you want to continue? Do you want to fight? Anthony just gives him a yes, but it's a very reluctant and hesitant yes. The referee knows what he's seen, and he waves off the fight 1 minute and 27 seconds into the 7th round. And Andy Ruiz has pulled off the shocking upset of the decade, the biggest upset since Buster Douglas knocked out Tyson. This is insane. This is crazy. This was not what everybody expected. Andy Ruiz has stripped Anthony Joshua of his 3 major world titles, and is now the unified heavyweight champion of the world, and the first ever Mexican American to do it at heavyweight. And that's completely impressive. It's shocking. It's unprecedented. No one really expected this. But perhaps we didn't really know Andy Ruiz like that. Perhaps we didn't analyze Andy Ruiz the way we should have, or we didn't give him the credit, the respect that he merited. Because Andy Ruiz, even though he does not look the part, he's flabby, he's big, he said it himself, right? That he acknowledges that he's not in the best of shape. He knows people criticize him for that. But even then, he's got a big heart. He's got skills. He's quick. He doesn't only have heart, because you can have heart, and yes, heart takes you a long way, and I think it comes first before skills. But he also backs it up with the skills. He's quick. He's got good combinations, good technique. He's not just a reckless puncher. He's a good boxer. He's got good defense. And he demonstrated all that on Saturday night. I think he quieted me. He quieted a lot of his critics. He silenced them, and he demonstrated that, hey, Andy Ruiz is a legitimate player in boxing. He's a legitimate player in the heavyweight division, and he just proved that. That was not a fluke. If anybody wants to say, oh, that was a fluke win, no, it was not. This was a systematic beatdown by one fighter to the other fighter over the course of 7 rounds. This was not one lucky punch that took Joshua down. This was not just, Joshua dominating Ruiz and then Ruiz just scoring this shocking knockout. No, it was not this. This is Ruiz from the very beginning, from the get-go, dominating the heavyweight champion, former champion now, Anthony Joshua. This was a systematic beatdown by the superior fighter on this night, and Andy Ruiz is the real deal. Silenced a lot of his critics. Like I said, maybe we didn't analyze him or give him the credit because all we're basing our perspective on, all we're analyzing our opinion on is his looks, and that's something that we have to wake up about and stop doing that, because in all honesty, coming into this fight, I knew that Andy Ruiz's weight wasn't really something that wasn't the factor that I was looking at when making my opinion. I didn't look at this fight and say, oh, because Andy Ruiz is big and flabby, he's gonna lose. That was not even a factor in this, because I've come to learn in boxing that bodies, physiques, they only tell a portion of the story. It's not the full story. You can have guys that are chiseled and made out of stone, but just because they look good, just because they have a great body, doesn't mean that they're gonna win or they're the superior fighter. We've seen it before, and one person that comes to mind is Timothy Bradley. Now, Timothy Bradley is a great fighter. He's a future Hall of Famer, but sometimes he was always known to come in ripped, six packs and all. He just looked amazing. But then he fought some fighters that didn't necessarily have the same build as him, and maybe he lost or had a more tough time fighting them. And so, things like that, I've come to realize over my time of watching boxing that physiques don't really give you the full story. Just because a fighter looks chiseled and made out of stone, carved out of stone, doesn't mean that they're the better fighter. So coming into this fight, Ruiz's body, lack of physique, wasn't a factor in me thinking that he was not going to win. And vice versa, Anthony Joshua's physique, his body, wasn't why I thought he was going to win. I just thought that he was going to be the superior fighter. But again, I was pleasantly surprised, pleasantly silenced, and I'm a huge fan now of Andy Ruiz Jr. So congratulations to Andy Ruiz Jr. for becoming the unified heavyweight champion of the world. He now holds the WBO, the IBF, IBO, WBA titles. He's the third guy now amongst when you're talking about the heavyweights that have a title or in the division. You've got Tyson Fury, who's still the lineal champion. You've got Deontay Wilder, who holds the WBC title, and now you have Andy Ruiz Jr., who holds 3 of the major belts. So the dynamic of the heavyweight division has clearly changed. Anthony Joshua, in my opinion, he's still in it. He can still be a player. I think it all depends really on how he wants to come back from this. Someone had mentioned that he's made over 80 million pounds already in his career from fighting. I had to go to Google, right, and convert that to dollars. And that's a little over $100 million that Anthony Joshua has made from fighting. This is a very wealthy man. And so you have to question now, where is his mindset? When you have that much money, it's easy for you to be content. It's easy for you to go get comfortable. So that's one thing that I want to be looking in what might be the rematch with Ruiz or any future fight with Anthony Joshua is, how is his mindset? He's made so much money. He's already reached the pinnacle of the sport. He became unified champion, fought in front of 80, 90,000 people in Wembley Stadium. He fought arguably the biggest name in the last decade of boxing, Vladimir Klitschko, and knocked him out. These are huge accomplishments by Anthony Joshua, and he's already reaped in a whole lot of money. Is his mind, his heart, is it still in boxing? And that's one thing that I think we're going to have to look at, because his body's clearly there, his mind, his faculties are there as far as his reflexes go, but is his heart still in it? Is his mind still in it and willing to go through the process that boxing demands from a fighter? So we'll see. But Andy Ruiz Jr., I'm glad that Eddie Hearn, Joshua's promoter, is discrediting any sort of controversy. He's shutting down any person that wants to say, oh, Joshua had a panic attack, Joshua was this or that, he was nervous, he wasn't himself, he was uninterested. Okay, whatever it was, I don't want people to discredit what Andy Ruiz did. He was the better fighter on this night, and I'm glad that Eddie Hearn is shutting those people down, including Anthony Joshua's father, who wanted to come out and say that he had a panic attack. Eddie Hearn said none of that is true. the better man won that night. Joshua, too, has been very humble in defeat, and I give him mad props for that. Much respect. My admiration for him only grows now because of that, because he's taking defeat like a man. He's respectful. He's not making any excuses on a night where he could possibly have had excuses, but he's being very respectful towards the new champion. Gave him his place when he won. In the post-fight interview, he said, you know what, I don't really want to talk right now. It's Andy Ruiz's night. Of course, people wanted him to talk, which he eventually did, but at the end of the day, Anthony Joshua is a world-class person. He's a great guy, and he'll be back. Anybody who's putting him down right now when he's lost, I think they're just really disrespectful, and they don't understand that in boxing, in life in general, you're going to have your highs, you're going to have your lows. We're not always going to be feeling good, but, just because someone's feeling down, if you're personally feeling down, I don't think you'd like someone to be kicking you even further down. I don't think you'd like someone to be criticizing you and making you feel even worse. So I think it's something to reflect on. But Anthony Joshua, mad respect, a lot of admiration for him as a fighter and a person in general. He showed that he's a true champion at heart, and I'm wishing him the best and expecting him to come back even stronger from this, because losses do not define a fighter. In his career, all of the greats have lost. Andy Ruiz, on the other hand, right now is celebrating his moment, and he deserves it. He's earned it, and I'm looking forward to bigger things, guys. Subscribe to this channel. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section. I'm gonna close it out because this went out a little bit longer than what I wanted, but hey, hope you guys enjoy this. So give it a thumbs up if you did, comment and subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell icon, guys, to receive notifications. Till then, I'm out. God bless you.